Hey everyone, welcome to week 4 of online learning, although it feels like week 400. We are still in our operations topic, but we are getting very close to the end, another 2 weeks, and that should be us. So we're looking a bit about ethics and environmental considerations businesses need to take into account when they are in their operations department. So, our learning intentions for this lesson will be we will be finding out why businesses should operate in an ethical and environmentally friendly way. We will be learning about what businesses do in order to minimise their environmental impact and also explore what it means to act ethically, because a lot of people do get ethics mixed up because it's not really a rule that is set in place. It's more kind of a feeling that you get as a business and just something that you should do. It's not set in law. So just a little starter point to get us started in today's lesson. We already looked at businesses striving to be socially responsible. We looked at that back in our understanding business topic when we looked at objectives of a business. We talked about CSR, corporate social responsibility. So an organisation with this aim will behave in a responsible way. This might involve treating suppliers fairly and or protecting the environment. And if you cast your minds back, remember we talked a lot about different businesses. We looked quite into Lego and all their kind of corporate social responsibility. Obviously, their main product is made of plastic, so it's not great for the environment. But we also watched that video that PETA created when Lego teamed up with Shell as an investment opportunity. And remember, all the little Lego figures were drowning in the oil, and they played the very sad "Everything is Awesome" track in the background. So we're going to have that in the forefront of our minds, thinking a bit about social responsibility when we're going through this topic as well. So ethics and social responsibility. A big business has a lot of power, which it can either use responsibly or selfishly. Ethical organisations carefully consider the implications of what they are doing and the effect it might have on the community and the environment. Businesses must be seen to behave ethically and be as environmentally as possible. So, for example, a business may cut costs by hiring child labour at very low wages in developing countries. Paying below average wages lowers the firm's total costs and allows the business to make higher profits. Now, I can give you an exact example. I was on holiday 2-3 years ago now in Cuba, and we went to Havana for the day, and we had a tour around one of the biggest cigar factories there. And what they did was, it was the best place you could get, because for all you still got paid a pittance to work there. It was still one of the better paid jobs in the area because Cuba is a very poor country. And what they had in the cigar factory when we were on our tour, they showed us they actually have a school and kind of a daycare centre for the families and the children of the workers that are in the cigar factory. Now, these children aren't learning maths and English. These kids are actually learning how to roll cigars, because these children were actually being used to make the smaller cigars that you can purchase instead of the big long ones. And it was because they have smaller hands, smaller fingers, they can roll them up tighter and make them neater compared to an adult's hand. So they were definitely taking advantage of child labour, as not only were these children getting to make their products for them, they were also not being paid for doing this either. So, not that Cuba is the best example of an ethical country in the way that they run their businesses, because it's not, but it is a great example of exposing and using child labour for their benefit. We are now going to have a look at environmental ethics. So one way in which a business can be environmentally ethical is through minimising waste. So all businesses have to consider environmental and ethical issues. The government has put in place strict policies and laws that dictate some of the ways businesses have to consider the environment. So businesses can try to minimise waste. If left unchecked, business operations can produce a vast amount of waste. In some industries, the waste may even be hazardous to health or toxic to animals, people, anyone nearby. Not only does waste have an environmental impact, but it is also bad for business. Waste generated is essentially like throwing money away. So eliminating waste is therefore beneficial for the environment and helps reduce costs of the business. Disposing of waste is expensive for a business, therefore reducing the amount of waste generated in the first place makes good business sense. Try to minimise wastage by ensuring employees are trained and ensuring machinery is kept in good condition and also by not overstocking. However, providing training and maintaining machinery could be expensive. This would reduce the company's profitability. It is important in maintaining a good reputation that businesses do not simply dump waste materials that could harm the environment or send all their waste to landfill. They have to make sure that they reduce the amount of waste that is produced, as well as ensuring they dispose of it in an environmentally friendly way. Sometimes a business might call in the services of a specialist waste disposable company to dispose of certain types of waste, especially things like medical waste, needles. These need to be disposed of very carefully and can't just be thrown in the bin along with normal rubbish. Businesses must also be seen to be doing as much recycling as possible as well. So even the greenest of business operations produces some waste and it has to go somewhere. It's expensive and unethical for a business to send waste to landfill, so reducing the amount recycled is good practice. Recycling as much as possible, is a good environmental strategy. Where possible, businesses should choose raw materials that are recyclable. Waste needs to be sorted into different types of recyclables, just like at home. This is often done using colour-coded bins. Sometimes specialist recyclers are used depending on the material to be recycled, but ideally operations will reuse waste back into production. So if we have a look at the example at the side of the page here, an example of avoiding using the waste in production, if it's a fancy restaurant or hotel, for example, and they've got lots of offcuts, the trimmings of a product when manufacturing smoked salmon. Instead of going into waste and just throwing these wee extra bits away, these trimmings can be used in other recipes to produce delicious canapes. So this creates more sales revenue for the business because they're not just throwing those wee offcuts away, they're actually putting them on a plate and selling them and getting money for them. So recycling as much as possible by encouraging your employees to put rubbish in your appropriate coloured bins and by reusing materials in the production process as much as possible. Initially, buying the different coloured recycling bins could be expensive, but would hopefully encourage people to recycle as much as they can. Recycling can help reduce the company's energy bill by reusing materials rather than using new ones. Recycling will also help to reduce greenhouse gases by not having to extract new raw materials and by reducing materials that need to be transported. Growing consumer pressure right now is also, and I think a definite social factor, if you remember your pest deck, on businesses is to reduce the amount of packaging that they use. So similarly, businesses need to ensure that any packaging they do use is made from environmentally friendly materials that are easily recycled. Unfortunately, this type of packaging is often more expensive than the non-recyclable alternative. So it does make the product itself more expensive as the business needs to cover their costs. Limiting packaging to what is required to maintain quality is good for the environment as well and cut costs. So with the picture in the background, you see that in a lot of supermarkets now. You can buy these kind of drawstring bags that you can just put all the fresh fruit and veg that you're buying into them instead of putting all the wee separate plastic bags of put your apples in here, peppers in this one, and you can just put them all into that one instead. It does make it more difficult I imagine, for when you go through the till, because then everything's in the one bag, you can't differentiate it. The customer assistant needs to take everything out. It makes their job a little more difficult. But if it means that you are reusing and instead of using those small plastic bags, it is a benefit. So trying to minimise packaging by only using the amount of packaging needed to maintain the product's quality. Not only will this cut down on costs, it's good for the environment. They also need to try and use as much friendly packaging as possible. But there are many products out there that previously have had significant amounts of packaging reduced. For example, Easter eggs, they now contain a lot less packaging. It's really just the kind of outer box and a little bit to keep it steady inside now. And many other products are following suit. Another way in which a business can be environmentally ethical is through trying to prevent their pollution and emissions that they give off. So businesses often use harmful materials in their production processes with chemicals or fuels, for example. Production also generates many byproducts, some of which are toxic. Businesses need to ensure that they do not release any such pollutants into the environment, either by discharging them in the waterways or into the atmosphere. They need to carefully monitor and manage pollutants, ensuring that they are properly and safely disposed of. So careful disposal of waste though can be expensive, but businesses don't consider this properly, or if they don't consider it properly, they can be prosecuted for it if they don't do it properly. Less obvious forms of pollution also need consideration. So the noise a business causes, for example, there is noise pollution, or the traffic congestion and pollution a business may cause with customers and employees travelling to and from the business. And there are several penalties for businesses that discharge pollutants into the environment as well. So just a little point to bring up to your attention. This is kind of an extreme case study for you to complete. Unfortunately, there are many examples of businesses who fail to dispose of water responsibly, either knowingly, unknowingly, or by accident. There is a famous, rather extreme example involving the DuPont company in their manufacture of Teflon, so the substance on non-stick pots and pans. The true story of it was actually made into a movie in 2019. So if you get the chance, I would suggest that you watch it. It's called Dark Water and it's available on Amazon Prime, and I'll link the trailer in the description of this video. It's got Mark Ruffalo in it, Anne Hathaway, a few other actors that you might recognise, but it is actually a really interesting film and amazing what they thought they could get away with, so I highly suggest that you go and watch it if you have Amazon Prime. Just as a bit of a break, this is definitely part of your business work for this week. So if anyone catches you sitting there watching a film, tell them I have gave you permission. Businesses also want to be proud of their sustainability policies as well. So with environmental ethics being increasingly important for consumers, businesses are keen to emphasise their green credentials. Businesses want consumers to buy their products comfortable in the knowledge that the natural resources used in manufacture are in some way being replaced. Some businesses will make a sustainability pledge to customers, such as the poster at the side here from Brewdog, who have committed to plant a new forest in their efforts to become a carbon neutral business. Businesses also want to be aware of their energy use as well. So business operations can have huge amounts of energy. Operating heavy machinery in factories, for example, can be very power hungry. They take a lot of power off the grid. Energy costs money, so businesses are always striving to reduce their energy usage by using more energy efficient equipment, training employees, so making sure you turn off your computers and lights at the night, for example, when you leave the office, or setting targets for reducing their energy use. Businesses also need to consider how green the energy they do use is. So some businesses may even have installed wind turbines or solar panels to generate some of their own power. So let's have a little look at ethics and social responsibility. So being socially responsible, a business goes beyond environmental issues alone. Businesses need to ensure that they conduct their activities in an ethical way. This would include treatment of employees, so giving them a fair wage, ensuring working hours aren't too high and that they have adequate breaks, that they employ health and safety legislation, so ensuring that every employee is aware of the health and safety legislation and they're given appropriate training on it. Employees have fair treatment, so nobody is treated better than someone else. And it's important that workers are treated fairly at home and overseas, including the workers involved in all parts of the supply chain. If the business is to do with animals, it's maybe a meat company or something of the like, a food product company, making sure the standards of the animal welfare are kept high as well. They're not being kept up in small cages. There was a big scandal a few years ago about battery farmed chickens, so thousands and thousands of chickens all crammed up into tiny little huts. It still goes on today, and that's where we have now free range chickens, so it's chickens that have a large area to roam around in before they are taken, unfortunately, to Nando's. Being a positive part of the local community where it operates, so it provides jobs for local people in the area, and also being out there and being seen to donate funds or support charities as well. So an ethical business must ensure that its suppliers are also operating in a socially responsible way as well, because it's all very well and good you being socially responsible, but if your suppliers aren't following along suit as well, then it's going to have an impact on your business too. And you might recognise this logo straight away as well. It's the Fair Trade logo. The Fair Trade logo means a product has been sourced and manufactured in an ethical way. The farmer will have been paid a fair price and suppliers will treat employees fairly and be committed to their welfare and health and safety. The Fair Trade symbol is owned by Fair Trade International, who accredit businesses to say that they meet minimum standards in an ethical practice. So we've come to the end of your recorded lesson for this week. We've gone over all the points needed to cover, so I highly suggest that you have been taking notes, making sure that your notes are up to date with all of this information. Just because we are going through these slides and through these lessons as videos for you, I suggest you definitely have these notes in your jotters as well. I would have been making you sit and copy notes out in class, so just because you're at home it's no different. So we've got to the end of ethical and environmental factors for operations, so you should now be able to explain why a business should operate ethically, set out methods businesses can use to reduce their environmental footprint, and describe what ethical business practices are and be able to give real-world examples. So you're now ready to attempt the assignments posted on Teams. They will be clearly marked which ones are for hire and for Nat 5. There will be slightly different ones this week, but there will also be ones where you must all attempt them as well. And once again, if you have any questions at all, please email me direct. I will answer as soon as I possibly can. And I am here to talk to you if you need any help with anything. And if anyone feels like they would benefit if they want to get together one day and we will have a live call, I'm more than welcome to do that as well. Let me know if it's something you would be interested in. So thanks again, guys, and you can now make your way onto Teams to see what assignments have been posted for this week's lesson. Thank you, stay safe.